Friends, family, and keepers of the faith, welcome to another Del Boy blog. This one is dated year 2 blog 39, or in legacy numbers blog 91, and it's dated 19th of November 23. And I'm not going to start off like I normally do. It's been a very, very, very weird week. I've not been well, but more importantly, my mother hasn't. She had to go away for a couple of days, women's things, so I didn't really want to discuss that. But with me being off as well, I might have water on the lungs. It was noted that when I was going for a walk this week, Monday in particular, when I was going for a walk, you have what they call these settings, and one of them is called load. And on load, my heartbeat was going to fantastic levels. And then on balance, which is when you rest, it was fine again. And I've been feeling a little bit bad around the throat for a while. So I did go and see someone, and there is some raspiness in my lungs. So I've been given some tablets to disperse water. Apparently it's quite common with people that take high blood pressure, that if you've been taking them from a very long period of time, and I've been taking them since I was 18, you get a build-up. So we're doing that at the moment. Obviously I brought up all the other things, but they weren't that concerned about them at the moment. It was like, don't throw the kitchen sink at us. We'll address these afterwards. So, you know, it's been a rough time, because I was in bed for quite a considerable amount of time, and therefore I didn't watch as much product on YouTube as I normally do. Now I've caught up as best as I can. I've tried to chat to a few people about some future enhancements, but of course it's the weekend, so I haven't been able to speak to them. But what do I mean by enhancements? Well, anybody knows me that knows I'm a retro zone nut, so it's basically anything that was I've sort of lived in that's sort of carrying on today, or stuff that I want to relive. And of course Doctor Who is in its 60th anniversary, so there's another retro event coming up. I tried to, as I said, contact a few people, in particular Jake, Ryan. I will be speaking to Denny as well, because I've learnt a little bit about StreamYard, and I wanted to discuss the possibility of doing a live StreamYard after the Doctor Who broadcast that's going out on the Saturday at 6:30, to discuss what we thought, initial thoughts. I will be speaking to them hopefully soon, see if they're available. I find with something like a watch along, and I've been sort of like concentrating a lot on that there's too much talking going on and too much not taking in what's going on. And in retrospect of that, therefore, I don't think a watch along works. You'll miss the Easter eggs, you'll miss the emphasis on something that you're seeing on screen, and you need to digest that and then come on. So whatever I'll be doing, it will be based on an after show. That's just one thing. The other thing is that Rock God is well aware of another little project I've been working on. I did mention it to Mainmeister a number of weeks back, so he won't remember. But another thing that StreamYard is going to be used for is another little project. And that's going to bear fruition, hopefully, this week. Now, that means that I need to speak to them, find out if they've got some availability, a recording schedule, some possible editing, and then a suitable time to release it where it doesn't interfere with all of my friends, which is, again, something that I always do. I'm not going to release something that knocks something else that's done on a regular basis somewhere else. So I'm looking into that. Again, people like Rock God, Denny, Mainmeister, Jake, those types of people will be involved if I can get them. If I can't, then basically it's going to be harder and it might have to be knocked on the head. So those are some exciting things that are coming along. This recording is a little bit later because I've got a new camera. Hopefully it's stable, no lip sync issues. Hopefully colors are slightly better, definition is slightly better. I'll show you the box at the end, but of course when I went into OBS I had to do all the settings again, so that's why the recording is so late. I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference because I didn't watch too much this week. So the one thing that I want you to all understand is that in the past I've considered people to be above family. You know, if somebody asks me something, I pretty much drop it at that moment and do it. That's because I know how important it is for people to have something quick. Okay. This week and several weeks prior to this, come to understand that sometimes, well, all the time, should I say, family come first. I've been stupid and I've concentrated on friends to get stuff done for them because I know what waiting is like. But if it's not appreciated, if it's turned against you, if it falls back on you because you're not concentrating on the most important aspects, which is family, then of course you feel flat. So again, another turning point in how I'm going to handle things in the future. If it doesn't fit in with my mother's needs, tough. If that's a problem for you guys, apologies, but would you do anything different? I have to look at that. So yeah, number of things have been going on in the background since I got better around about Friday, and it was Friday, and therefore you can imagine I've only had stuff to watch Sunday, Monday, Friday, Saturday, plus prepping for my blog on Saturday. So apologies if I miss anything, apologies if I don't get your name called out, apologies for a number of things that are beyond my control. But let's move to the news. Yeah, let's get the news out of the way. So in the news, we've got the war, because we always start off with the war. Waves of Russian drones attack Kiev for the second night in a row. Ukraine's administrator said air defense systems hit 10 drones in Kiev and its outskirts. Meanwhile, a Russian authorities said a Ukraine drone was heading for Moscow, and this was shut down on Saturday. Overnight, the wave of attacks grew to 38 drones, with 29 shot down. Yes, we've talked about this before, where I've said that I thought drones would become a major part of this. They're sourcing them, I think, Israeli type drones. They seem to be cheap and quite effective. But apparently Ukraine have got it under control. They've managed to shoot down the majority of them. What did hit major points such as electricity and gas, but loss of life has been low from what I can tell. So that's the war. Now, when it comes to the UK, it's been only what I've been able to hear. And you'll know that last week I talked about Suella Bannerman, where she was pretty much a very hate person because of the Palestinian um, protest walks and a number of other things. So on Monday, major news was going on, which I couldn't keep up with listening to Radio 5. So I've written down the news as best as I can. And it starts off with Suella Bannerman has been fired from her position. Immediately afterwards, David Cameron, a former Prime Minister, was given a Lord status, and then within the hour was appointed Foreign Secretary. So that was a major thing that was going on Monday and took up pretty much the world news that day. Closer to home and a nicer thing, unless you're a big fan, Glastonbury tickets went on sale yesterday and they sold out within under an hour. So there's good news and bad news there. Yes, there's another Glastonbury. Love music festivals. I think they're fantastic. Very entertaining. Love music. Bad, sold out within an hour. I think that's a good news story as well, really, when you consider people don't have a lot of money. People can now still go. But of course, if you really wanted to go, they were sold out within an hour, which means scalpers are going to come in, aren't they? Let's see, what else have we got? Yes, something that doesn't interest me at all. I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. The popular TV show on ITV with Ant and Dec starts anew tonight. I do not like reality shows. I will not be watching. It's got the standard mix of B stars and politicians. So great, but not for me. And a look ahead, the Chancellor has given a pre-autumn statement to say that this week, when he brings out his address, he may have a cost of living tax cut, but that will give breath of life to the quality of living. But there is a question mark on which will be the responsible ones, which will be the ones that will give us the greatest effect. I've got reservations, but the good news was inflation did come down to half, which was one of the Prime Minister's 5 tasks before the end of the term for his party, which is next year. And therefore he hit that, and that was a major good news story during the week. That's it, really, for the news. Nice and short and sweet. And we come to the shout outs. Again, thank you very much for anybody that did comment, whoever left a like, who saw my blog and has subscribed. It is appreciated. It's the only way that I can grow. It's the only way that I can get some other ideas to expand. And although the numbers for the shout outs are not great, every single one of them is appreciated. And I'll read them out. So they are Martroid, Robert's Retro Gaming, Colin Jones Ponder, David's Retro Games Play Badly, Gaming Since the 70s, Wee Bob Art, Paul Patrick, and Ian Hill, The Ramblings. As I said, every single one of them is a gem. YouTube is doing its normal thing of deleting comments. If one of yours is this week, I apologize. And I'm doing the very best I can to, for everybody that I've just read out there, you're in what they call a special bin of do not delete anything. So I'm hoping that that has an effect. And we'll see how things go from there. And just going to take a little drink. And we'll then pick up upon all of the questions. Hopefully the recording is going well. I'm just going to do a pause and then just check settings to make sure everything's going okay. So just bear with me for a moment. And there we go. I didn't see any showstoppers. So I think everything will be okay from now. So we'll get to the questions. Okay, so the first one comment that was left is from Wee Bob Art. So these are in no particular order. He says, "Hi Del, I did listen to this a few days back but didn't comment. So here I am again, as I remembered. Anyway, hope you are doing well. Watched Violent Night last year at Christmas. It was a decent movie. Heading off to Glasgow Royal Concert Hall tonight to see Music from the Movies. It's being presented by Richard E. Grant and Peter Capaldi, so looking forward to it. Wow. If you see, this is the thing, this is where I go, God, if I was in Glasgow, I'd be there. That would be absolutely magnificent. I hope you've seen that now, and you can fill me in next week on how it was. If not, just let me know anyway, at any point. Very interested in that. And then you've got a question for next time. I've been playing Star Wars Fallen Order on my PC. I wouldn't say I'm hating it, but it feels like someone has taken Star Wars and tried to make the Jedi into a Lara Croft. I'm working my way through the game and have gotten too far to give up. What's your favourite Star Wars game, and what is your least favourite Star Wars game? Next question would be in Star Wars and other sci-fi type movies, etc. What is the weirdest spaceship that you can think of? Why do you think it is weird? Anyway, all the best. Oh, wow. Let me think, because that's quite a lot of question there. The Star Wars game is going to be the hardest. It's one of the biggest franchises out there, and it's had the biggest amount of releases across multiple platforms. I've played games on the Game Boy, the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, the 3DS. So those are just handhelds. I've also, of course, including those, the Vita and the PSP, also had Star Wars games. And then, of course, there's been the major consoles, PS4, PS3, Xbox 360, Xbox X, in particular, Wii U. We've got Switch as well. I think there's been some Star Wars ones on there. You can imagine. And not forgetting my beloved PC. I think the biggest amount of time I've played with a Star Wars game would be on the PC. It's a very difficult question, but a lot of people know I sort of like my RTS games. Can't quite remember the title. What was it? No, can't remember it. There was a real-time strategy where there was AT-ATs and everything, that you controlled your units. It was like Command and Conquer type thing. I think it was called Empire at War. So that was definitely a good one. I like those because not only have you got the fanfare music that you'd get on CD because it was on the PC at the time, and quite late into Windows, which means it wasn't too bad when it came to stability. But you controlled the whole of the units, and you could choose which side. You could be the Empire, although you could be the Rebellion. So those were great, but they didn't scratch the itch because anybody that knows Star Wars wanted to fly the ships or wanted to control a lightsaber. I do remember playing Knights of the Old Republic, and I do remember playing Dark Forces. They sort of like scratched an itch. They look rough now, don't get me wrong, but those were great. And then there were some Star Wars pinball games that have come out. Those are great, just purely because they were actual pinball machines and you could actually reenact them on your PC. So that's fantastic. But one of the ones that I got that I kept coming back to, and it wasn't because of its console origins or its arcade origins. It was the episode 1 Racer. And that was because there was this sort of like a feeling of speed. You were going pretty fast. The graphics weren't particularly impressive, but the frame rate was incredible. I remember that when I got that, I swapped between 2 cards. I'd moving away from my Power VR card, and I was moving towards Voodoo 2 and Voodoo 3. And the speed and the different types of effects that those 2 cards did were noticeable. That's for definite. But I think my fondness is more towards X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I think if I was to name a #1 Star Wars game, it would be that. When it comes to the arcade, it's totally different. It'd be the original Atari Star Wars sit-down console, blowing up the Death Star. Absolutely lovely. Can't fault it in any way. But I've named a number of genres there. I remember that when I had my SNES, I even liked the Super Star Wars games. They were rock hard. They were mostly side-scrolling, platform efforts. But back in the day, I didn't mind that because the platform games were on a sort of like resurgence, and people loved to be able to see new levels, new graphics, and see the end. And you were sort of like, you never really had a judgment of where the end would be until you reached it, unless you cheated, of course, and basically turned on a cheat, or you read reviews or watched YouTube stuff. But we're going back before YouTube, really, so it would have been guides. They would have given you a sort of a clue. So hopefully that's given you an answer there. When it comes to ships, let me just go back and see what you said. You said, look. What is the weirdest spaceship that you can think of? Why do you think it's weird? I mean, you could always say the TARDIS was weird because it was basically a public police box. Spaceship? Don't know. I wouldn't really class it as a spaceship. There's been some crackers that have been absolutely wonderful, most noticeably under Jerry Anderson, with the Eagles and the UFO interceptors and all of the ground control stuff. Obviously, you've got the beauty of things like the Enterprise and the shuttlecrafts in Star Trek, and you've got the lovely fast crafts that are in Star Wars. Weird. I'm going to go with the ships that are in Battle Beyond the Stars. You'd have to probably look that one up. But Battle Beyond the Stars, I did in a blog way back. I got the steelbook of it. And it's got a very early James Horner track to it, which, by the way, sounds identical to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. The cues in that, they're almost identical. I think it's because it was something like his second or third score he'd ever done. But where was I going with this? Battle Beyond the Stars. They look like phallic symbols, like balls and testicles and things. Weird. But as a set of spaceships, and being very eclectic, I'll probably say that. And hopefully that answers your question. You do go on to another section you've got on another note, and I read this because it's in 2 parts. On another note, the software I use, Rebella 6, is becoming Rebella 7, and it will be $20 standard and $30 for Pro. It might be worth picking up a copy as it's normally 5 times this cost. It might give you that push to start getting into the world of drawing, and it is truly a part of my life that helps with anxiety and just brings in the flow. This experience is enhanced by being able to listen along to your good self and drawing, as well as other other tubers, and I enjoy to watch and listen to. Oh, absolutely! And I didn't know that there was a price cut for that. That's definitely what I'll be doing after the stream. I'll definitely have a look. There has been a lot of expenditure for me. Just thinking now, last week I was about to buy a PS5 game and do a gaming stream. Again, I haven't been able to contact that person. So, now I'm in a quandary. Do I go down that route or do I go down this route? I don't think I can ignore that deal. But then again, I can't really ignore my mate either. I was really looking forward to doing something with him. So, watch this space. You know how big I am with drawing. I'm not fantastic, but every single device I've got, an awful lot of, I've got pens, tablets with pens. And from that point of view, I love drawing. So, yes, definitely going to be looking into that one. Just going to take another drink. Then we move to Denny, my good friend Denny. Thank you, Denny, for bringing up all of your lovely comments. I so respect you. I'm sorry I haven't been in touch this week. I've not been very well. But yeah, here we go. It goes, hiya, mate. As always, I hope you and your mother are keeping well. Well, I'm glad to see Remembrance Sunday went off okay, besides the disgusting behaviour of certain groups. And I'll leave it at that, though policing is definitely not being carried out correctly. Yeah, I have to agree. Road rage is something I keep under control these days. You just never know if the other car driver has a weapon on them or will simply flip and run their car into you. It's best just to let it go as a secondary incident doesn't occur. Chocolate bars, yes, many have disappeared from our shelves. I used to love, namely Bar 6, Fuse and Golden Cup. Let's be honest though, chocolate isn't half as nice these days. I remember those lemon and orange segment jelly sweets that came out at Christmas. I agree, they taste like cardboard. That's the first time I probably smiled in this blog. But they were awful. I also remember Moon Dust, the popping candy. Yeah, did I call it Stardust, Moon Dust? Yeah. You'll have to excuse sometimes. I know of the product, can't remember always the title of it, or bits and bobs about it. But you get the idea, and I was there. Otherwise, I'd never even remember it. I've noticed the Christmas adverts have already started. Marks and Spencer's has removed one already due to some hats burning in the fire of a certain colour scheme. The others are so far removed from Christmas, I don't know why they bother. Oh, the others are so far removed from Christmas, I don't know why they bother. Yeah, there's been already Julian Clary doing his update on his Christmas adverts on Channel 5 last week, and I was looking through the channels yesterday when I was just doing my blog, and it was repeated again. Same damn bloody thing. How many times are they going to show that up till Christmas? Of course, we're going to have the normal Sky Cinema Christmas channel. You're going to have all of the horror channels and everything do a Christmas channel. ITV will ramp up its Christmas movies. We'll get the Radio Times out each year. Why they bother, I don't know at the moment, because you've got your planning guide on just about everything. It's one of those things. It does, I suppose, for the certain people and a certain age and families, make Christmas exciting. Look at all this stuff we're going to be watching at Christmas. Look at all this food we're going to be getting in. We got to get those presents. We got to get them wrapped up. We got to find a time to wrap them up. We got to hide them. The advent calendars, where you take the chocolates out of the calendar. All sorts of stuff. And for a certain age, love it. If I'd got kids now, I'd be loving it. haven't, so it's a different feel. So I've never imposed myself for Christmas because I believe I'm not the norm. The norm is those people that I've just mentioned that are taking photographs of their Christmas meal and plonking it on social media and everything else. That's not me. But I do try and keep it light, and I do appreciate that these people are not intending to make you feel down because your life is down at the moment. This week I've had both box sets of Wurzel arrive and dual 4K, both cuts. Looking forward to watching these. Yes, we'll come across my media buying at the end. So glad that you got your dual, mate. That one was a long time coming. Wurzel, I know your fondness for it. Absolutely wonderful. And I know what a costly event that's been because you're such a completist and have bought it twice, as shown in the previous blogs. This week I've also watched 2 more sci-fi programs that may interest you. Beacon 23, starring Lena Headley on MGM+, and Monarch, Legacy of the Monsters on Apple TV. If you're a Godzilla fan, you'll love this. Looking forward to the English dub of the new Godzilla film, Godzilla -1 on 4K. Yeah, I like monster movies. I like Godzilla. In fact, I think I bought Mainmeister Godzilla vs. Kong to show off his new telly that he had got the year before. It was a 4K, so I wanted him to show it at its best. And I do believe that back then it was a reference disc on how sharp an image can be and how colours can be vivid. So that's brilliant. I've watched Godzilla through my childhood. He's not my favourite. King Kong always started it off for me. But yeah, that's great. When it comes to those other 2 shows, I'll definitely look those up. I've watched the first 2 episodes of Bodies. It's been difficult for me to catch up with TV with me being ill this week. But the other TV show I'm watching at the moment is called Newsreader, which is on BBC 2. And it's based around a news desk and what goes on behind the scenes while news events are going on. A bit like I've got a bit more news for you, or no, Drop the Dead Donkey was the title, wasn't it? Drop the Dead Donkey. Only they not only show the events that were going on, but they show how the events were. You know, the news came in as a snippet, which they then went with. You know, so if a bomb goes off, then of course they send a news crew. You've got to know that this is happening at the time, otherwise, you know, you sleep and snooze, you lose. So it's very, very good. I like those types of programs. I like Broadcast News as a film and a number of other news reader programs. I do like them. I think they're great. As for the other Star Wars series, personally, I'm not so hard on them. As are they as good as the stuff we watched when we grew up? No. I'm entertained by them, though. Yeah, and that's the way to look at it from me point of view. I don't bash Marvel and Disney as much as a lot of channels do. I do think they are a negative in the industry. I do think they need to step back. I do think they need to stop imposing their beliefs on us. It should be the fans that lead. It was us that made them the money in the first place. It's got to be in good hands, and I think that's where the problem is. They've tried to put it into people's good hands, but then there's too much network and director interference, you know, from high above. So they're in a negative view at the moment, and I hope that that can change round. There's an interesting article doing the rounds about missing Doctor Who episodes. Through the story wasn't quite correct, it has been noted that collectors have up to 9 missing episodes to return to the archives. Continued efforts are taking place to get them back. Yes, this is that news article that I've been reading up about. It's the 60th anniversary. There is always a big kick to try and get more episodes. We know that certain collectors have got stuff. We now know a little bit more in possibly the numbers that are being released, but we also know the reasons why they won't bring them back. It was BBC property in the first place. If you tried to contact the BBC, they could, in their hands, prosecute you. They keep saying they wouldn't, but that's a verbal. There's no contract, there's no written piece of paper that says, sign this, this is our declaration. We're not going to prosecute. And there's no deals either in regards to handing it back to you, getting a copy, all of that sort of stuff. You hope that they'll do the best they can for you, bringing it back, because if they didn't have it, you've got the original. As much as you're taking it away from somebody else to be able to watch it, we really would like the original back so that everybody could watch it. So yeah, big thing that I would also bring up, if I was doing a Doctor Who sort of like broadcast, even if it was sporadically, like per quarter or something. Loved your media section for this week. Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger I have on Blu-ray in a box set with the other Sinbad films from Indicator, and Violent Night looks brilliant. Definitely have to watch that. Yes. And more of those Indicta films came through this week. I'll show them at the end. Question for this week. What are your favourite Godzilla films? I should have guessed, shouldn't I, Denny, that you mentioned Godzilla and bang. Do you prefer to watch them in English dub or the original Japanese language? Now, that's an interesting one as well. Let's see, Godzilla. Well, I've tried to sort of like express that Godzilla's been around since the 50s, 60s, 50s, 60s, late 50s. Right, I'm going to go mid-50s. A rubber man in a suit going around a construction of a city so that you can, because they wanted to use proper effects, or should I say practical effects, and that's because that's all there was around at the time. Fun, absolute fun. The story was the thing. They got silly as they went on, with Godzilla having to then battle all sorts of creatures. I remember one in particular, Mothra. Oh god, a flying monster, which poses a bit of a problem for Godzilla, who's a lizard and can't fly. But I always thought that they were brilliant entertainment. They went into a different direction a little bit in the 70s. I did watch those because I'm a child of the late 60s. So mid-70s, I'm sort of obviously looking at things like anything to do with dinosaurs and monsters. So yes, I watched a lot of those. I will say that I have a passion, I think, for the older Godzillas. The modern ones have been okay. There's the obvious crossover with King Kong. The fun part is the destruction part, unless you were living in the building. Best way I can say about that. Do I prefer the dubbed versions or the English ones? Well, obviously, back in the day, I'm going to watch the English ones. Who wanted to read and watch a film when you're only 8 or 9 years old? I've had a bigger appreciation of it now, and I've watched it in its original language, and I don't mind it. It's not a problem to me. I think the best way, really, though, is if you are a person coming into foreign language for the first time, probably watch the English version so that you understand the story. Then go back and watch the dubbed, the original dubbed version. And read and watch it at the same time and see which one you prefer. I don't think sometimes it's a preference. I think sometimes it's about the content and the context, because what you read is different to what's being said a number of times in films. So that's great. And you've put, cheers as always. Look forward to your next blog. Say hello to your mum for me. And of course, every time I say I will say that, I do. My mum doesn't really understand what stream means. She thinks I'm going fishing. But she started to understand that blog is a diary. She started to understand that I do this for a legacy. She thinks I'm crazy. She said, you're not that old that you're not going to be able to find someone before you're too old to have kids. Don't know what she means by that. God, by the time they were going to university, I'd be in a nursing home. But it's, hey, never say never. Never say never. Okay. Paul Patrick has come back and said, another good listen, Delve. Oh, thank you so much. Do you have any thoughts on the new Atari 2600 Plus? Seems pretty expensive, especially selling separate cartridges for Berserk. The 2600 totally passed me by with the high prices of games. Let me just get a drink down me on this. Such a good question, because it's just been released and I knew it was coming out. It was all over the YouTube. 3 different models, if I remember rightly, with the top one being the one that is £100 plus. But Atari tried this 2 years back. But that particular console was in the style of a 2600 with more modern elements to it. And it was more a PC in a 2600 case. And it was discontinued within 2 years. The best thing that came out of that experiment was the controller, which I'd love to buy even now, because the controller is a special controller that also acts like a paddle and acts like a spinner. And I'd love that for Tempest. Trouble is, you can only get it in the States, that controller. If you try and buy it over here, it's £80-90. It's a $54 thing in the States. Of course, it's got all the mod cons of being wireless and that, but it's the spinner aspect that I want. I know Colin has built his own spinner. I'm not that au fait at designing things or putting things together. I put up with things, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about when it comes to this controller. But the Atari 2600 Plus, my question on it is, who's it aimed at? It does play a lot of the Atari 2600 cartridges, which is great for the person who collects cartridges and the Atari stuff in particular. But the other people that want it just to reminisce, it's a bloody expensive thing. It's only got chips in it that are now nearly 10 years old, so we're not talking cutting edge. The cartridges have to load in. So when you plug the cartridge in and switch it on, which is what you would do with the original cartridge, it would instantly come on. This is more like a ROM dumper, and you put the cartridge in, turn it on, and it loads the contents of the cartridge into RAM in the device, and then plays. Now, its accuracy is pretty good. I've been told there's only about 6 cartridges it doesn't like. So that's good. But I think it's its price that gets me. It's not the exact same dimensions. It is a 4 switcher, if I remember rightly, not a 6 switcher. It's got the veneer, just like the original Atari. It is obviously HDMI, which is brilliant. You do have an option on the switch on the back, which allows you to have it in normal TV mode, like we used to have with our TVs back in the day, 4:3. They usually call it 4:3 ratio, or 1:3:3 to 1. I think that's the other one. But it also has a 16:9, which gives you that widescreen look. I also like the dip switch idea on the cartridges. They're bringing out special cartridges that you can buy with 4 or 10 games on. And you have to use a dip switch to choose which game you want to download and play. That I liked. But I'm going to go back to my original argument. Who is this being aimed at? If it's being aimed at me, I've gone past it. I've got my emulation. I've got my Mister. I've got handhelds that can play 2600 stuff. I've got 2600s in joysticks that that have just got games inside the joystick, all sorts. And therefore, you got to say to yourself, Atari, how many times are you going to bring out the same stuff? And am I talking to the same Atari? Because Atari went years ago. It's just the brand that sold on to another company to bring out something to carry the torch. So again, yeah, not really many places to go now for Atari. They've got to start looking forward into the future, not keep looking back. And that's funny coming from me that likes nostalgia. Brilliant question. Thank you, Paul. I hope that answers it. I think it's going to be a great product for a certain set of people. Who those people are, I don't know, and it's too costly. Then we get to David's retro games played badly, and he said, as ever, you're keeping me company at work. Glad you enjoyed doing the live stream. Oh, I did very much. Very rarely have road rage. Most cars can't keep up with me. Yeah, we know what car you got, you cocky bastard. Personally, I miss the coconut boost. Not seen one in years. That's a chocolate bar. I don't like coconut, so you can have all the bounties in my celebration tins or whatever it is that we'll be getting. Because we can have the bloody lot. Ugh. Don't recall indoor fireworks at all. It's funny. I didn't get too much of a response, I think, comment-wise about indoor fireworks. They were a thing. I don't know if they're a thing anymore. They were bloody awful, so you didn't miss anything. What do you think to the new Madness track? Oh, well, do you know what? With all the Beatles news, I haven't really listened to that Madness track too much. I did hear it on the radio going into work. I thought it was all right. I was a big Madness fan back in the 80s, the early 80s. They've still always been around me listening, so I've never really had to forget about them, come back to them, refresh my knowledge on them. I think anything that comes out from a group that's still going is brilliant. Only if your voice or the band is starting to creak, do I consider that not to be a great answer at all. Love your description of Les Dennis Tommy Cooper. Oh, thank you very much. Can't remember what I was talking about back then to bring those up. The plank, I should think. I slept on a toilet once. Long story. Yeah. Unusual places where we sleep. What a great question from Steve. Thanks for letting me know you slept on a toilet once. I think I've slept near a toilet once when I was being sick. Head down the toilet, shouting Europe. But there we go. Schindler's List is a classic. Love the Sinbad films. Great trailers. Thanks for the company, mate. My pleasure. It's what I try and do. Like I say, they're also there for me, and they're also there for my nephew and nieces. They'll see a clip and they might even then go and have a little look in my collection when I'm gone and see if they want to watch them. Those clips are not going to be around forever. So then we move on. Thank you very much, David. To Robert. Robert's Retro Gaming. Hey, Del. Thanks as always for the interesting and entertaining blog. I enjoyed your discussion about the state of VR. What price threshold for a Quest 2 would you consider a good deal? Oh, wow. Now, bit of a story. I got a really nice comment from Kevin last week. And he wanted to know my thoughts on the new VR headset. In fact, it's just here with its new head strap. So it's looking much better now. It's even got a light visor there. Stop the light coming in. Don't know if you can see that there. And like I say, it's very, very nice. Of course, I've turned it on by tapping it. There we are. I think I've turned it off. But that's the new one. The old one is down here. And it's still a viable device. Much more basic, much older technology. Now, these came in 3 different memory grades. There was, I think, 64, 128, and 256 gig ones. This was the higher one. And they've dropped all the prices. And with Black Friday, I'd hate to think what the price would be, because these are now sort of like redundant. The good news about redundancy means that you can now forget about being blocked on an internet, you know, by going to Meta and being blocked. You can now side quest these, bring on emulators, all sorts, you know, like backed up games or games that have now gone from the shops and all of that sort of stuff. And you can load these up with films, and you've got a great device. Absolutely marvelous. If you can pick one of those up for 150 quid, bargain. Just remember, it is old tech, and I would use them not as a device that's brand new. I would basically buy a second-hand one or a cheap as possible one, and basically just wipe it and put emulation on it. I've done a little bit of that, and it works quite well. Mainmeister even brought into one of his streams once where he said he was playing on a Commodore 64 in a room. So you can imagine the VR turned on, it represented a room, which was the room of the 80s. And you could see your hands, and you could actually turn on the Commodore 64 and the screen would come on, and you could put in a tape and load the stuff, and then it would come up on the screen, and you'd pick up a joystick and play. All of that sort of stuff. So, as far as I'm concerned, now on the new headset where you've got mixed VR, so you've got augmented VR, I suppose, is the other thing of looking at it, where you can have the pass-through camera showing your real world. You could now put a Commodore 64 in front of your actual desk and have it playing off your monitors in VR. So we're going even one step further now. I will do that video about the new headset this week. I'll make a point of it. But to answer your question, get one as cheap as possible. New is always preferred because you've still got the guarantee. But from my point of view, now that I've got 2 VR headsets, the other one becomes redundant. I couldn't care less if I bricked it, because I've always got my other one. You continue, Dinorama. Now, there's a film technology due for a return. I've never seen that Sinbad movie. It looks fun. I've also not seen Violent Night. It might be entertaining. Oh, they are. Matey, please, if you do get time from your busy schedule of playing every Atari game going, which is in their thousands, do get to have a little bit of downtime and watch a film. It's amazing. I always considered film to be top tier for years, TV being the baby brother, and it was a special occasion to go and see a film. Not quite so much these days now. But to me, film was pinnacle. Games, totally something different. But as we keep moving forward, the barriers come down and the merger starts to happen, which is why we have films like Ready, Set, Go and Attila and all of these sorts of other CGI type films. That bridge is going to get crossed at some point. Brilliant question. Thank you so much. And we get to Colin Jones. Now, apologies to Colin, because he didn't realise that his comments were being wiped. He came to me and he said, I didn't know this, matey. I'll copy and paste the questions so that they're in this week. So I have got a comment from him. But it then leads on to that next bunch of questions where, I didn't realise, with the questions. So we'll do the questions at the end. So he's put, this is from my friend Colin. The charity stream was an utter joy to behold. Yes, it was. Thank you very much. And he did a wonderful job. He was part of the Sid show. One thing I've learned about reacting negatively to others on the roads is that the ones who piss you off really don't like it when called out and are likely to turn violent. I don't even bother reacting visibly anymore. Yeah, with you, it's an even bigger thing. I did tell that story in the correct way, though, which was I made a mistake and I put my hands up, and you couldn't think that I was causing aggro to that person. I made it perfectly clear. Sorry, my mistake. Hold my hands up. Didn't mean to do that. Please go forward. He then just wanted to make it known what he thought about it, which was to flip me the bird, which I took badly. What annoys me more about the killing off of Karamak is the scummy scalpers jumping on every available bar the instant that the announcement was made, and are now selling them off at over £4 a bar. No conscience whatsoever. Just wannabe politicians in it for themselves. Yes. We know all about this, scalpers. You know, at Christmas it's coming up. There'll be the brand new technical product that you want, and there'll be a limited run of them because of some parts or something that they can't make enough of. The scalpers will order 10 or 15 or 20 of them and sell them at twice the price. Just like the PS5, the PS4, even the Xbox HD drive at the time when the 360 came out suffered this crap. So scalpers up yours, that's my bird to you. Call it road rage or what you want. Alzheimer's terrifies me. Thought of literally losing your mind is not one I relish, and I've got a funny feeling I've got it, but I have been told, no, you're just getting old, you miserable old bastard. So I won't say that I've got it at the moment, but yeah, any health, anything that causes me pain, I'm scared of the most. Ones that are slowly degrading, I should probably be more terrified than I am, because they creep up on you. I'm not looking forward to any of that, matey, but we won't dwell on it. There are 12 days of Christmas. None of them are in November, bar humbug. Though Violent Night looks fun. It is fun, I will say that. If you get a chance to watch it, do watch it. Home Alone with violence. More violence than Home Alone. Yeah. It's a hard one to sort of like structure, but it's closer to Home Alone. I'm running out of questions, so while I think of more, can you answer my last two, please? I know how things get, so no stress. And that's where we started the conversation of what questions. I didn't see any comments from you for 2 weeks. Apologies, Colin, no, although you do know it's beyond my control. You've kindly copied them in. I haven't read them. Let's see what you've put. My question for the next blog: shaving. What's your preferred razor and soap solution? Personally, I use Harry's blades and a shaving stick and brush. Tempted to try Hanson's, but it's an expensive try, so I'm sticking with Harry's, which are £14 for 8 cartridges. Right, so let's see, what do I do about this one? Yeah, I do a mixture of electrical shaver, which is a very, very expensive shaver that was bought by my dad before he passed, which is a Philips. It's a Philips shaver, but it just totally comes to bits. You know, the head is split into 2 parts. You put a different head on the top, and you can do sideburns. It's a tri shaver. It self cleans. It comes with a cleaning you put the razor into a unit, and it cleans it and re-greases the blades. Basically, it's the bee's knees of electrical shavers, and I use that every other day, and I have a clean shave like once or twice a week. And when I do, I used to use Gillette, but I do now use these other shavers. I think it is actually Harry's. They're bamboo. I think they've got a branding on called Bamboo. You can buy the cartridges much cheaper. What I do tend to find is they clog quicker. The shaving foam I use is a gel, so I use that blue type gel that foams up. My granddad, before he died, didn't know about this gel, and I gave it to him, and he poured the whole lot into his hands and put it all on. And he said, he said, I look like Father Christmas. I didn't know that it was something that turned into a foam. It was a soap, and I went, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, I've got enough there to last me till next Christmas. Thanks very much." And I said, "Yeah, it's the one Christmas gift I get that seems to last me the longest out of everything, and that includes socks." But anyway, that's a nice little story for you. Thanks very much for that question. And then from Blog89, my question for the next blog is simple one: bath or shower? And that's a complex answer, believe it or not. Always, always, always shower. Used to love baths early on. Then I got put off because my mate says, "Ooh, baths, swimming in your own skin." And I went, "Oh God, you are, aren't you?" That's not a nice thought. So then I went showers all the time. My shower's broke at the moment, and that means I have to have baths. And every time I try to go to look to just get the shower replaced, my mother steps in and says, "No, we'll do the whole shower out." But if I'm going to do the whole bathroom out, it's going to be 5-6 grand, where all I want to do is buy the shower enclosure and buy the shower unit, which would be about 3, 4, 500, get it retiled, probably another grand. So we're looking at $1.50 and get that in. But it goes, "No, we got to have it all redone, tiles on the floor, mirror on the wall, a new extractor fan, new lighting, blah 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 blah," and it never gets done. So right now it's baths for me. But I love showers. I do love a shower. Marvelous. And that's the end of Colin for me as questions. Hope that's answered them. I do apologise, even though it's out of my control. You know how much I love your blogs and your streams. Please keep doing those. Thank you so much for this week. So glad you're back. Ian Hill, the Ramblings, has actually come back to me. He hasn't been around for a while. He's put, "Great blog. Always watch it, but I haven't commented for a while. Hope you're okay and your mother is feeling better. I was my late wife's carer, and it's difficult trying to rest and sleep. I was on constant alert, and going back and forth to hospitals is another pressure. I got through it because I had to, though I neglected my own health." Yeah, now you probably have noticed that my blog is a warts and all blog. It's supposed to show me at my lows, it's supposed to show me at my highs. If I look low this week or the other weeks, you probably know that the stress is getting to me. Not necessarily is that about friendships with people, not necessarily is that about collaborating with people. They can be what's going on in your personal life. I've mentioned before that I usually try to collaborate and do all of that as a cheat, a way of taking your mind away from your own problems. But as I said, that's like being an ostrich. You bury your head in the sand, but the problem is still there when you lift your head back up. So I'm learning, slowly learning. But yeah, I have neglected my own health this week and last week and the week before. And it can't be a great time for anybody working with me either. They can hear in your voice you're not that jolly self. But anyway, Christmas has been difficult over the last few years. She passed away on Boxing Day. It'll be 5 years this year. Yeah, my dad, it was in September, and it was 2016. So, yeah, um, every year is not easier. Grief doesn't go away. It just changes and feels different. Dead on. Can't agree more with you. Anyway, I've got a question this week. I got the Underwater Menace Steelbook, which is Reet Grand. Reet Grand. Yeah, I keep forgetting you from Yorkshire. I'm not very good at Yorkshire accents, even though my mum watches a lot of Emmerdale. More like Leeds, isn't it, that? Reet Grand. So with the 60th anniversary almost here, which Doctor Who story would you like to see found? Or episodes to complete a story? I started watching Doctor Who in 1965 as a child, but I have a soft spot for Patrick Troughton. I would love the Highlander to be found, see the introduction of Jamie. I've rambled on too long. You've not rambled on too long at all, and I love your ramblings, mate. Go watch your channel. In fact, I will add it to my list of friends that I go with, because you do episodic type reviews, which is unusual, where people do films and whole films. You'll actually not do a box set and say what the general was about it. You'll review every bloody episode. So absolutely fantastic. Going back to your question, if you've watched my blogs long enough, matey, you'll know that you've just hit the nail on the head. Patrick Troughton is my favourite Doctor. The Highlander is the most sought after story that I'd like to have back, because it does introduce Jamie. It never used to be that way. It used to be like the Web of Fear, but we've got that virtually now, and there's only one episode missing of that. If there's any other stories, everybody's talking at the moment about the Celestial Toymaker, which is quite a few missing stories in the BBC archives, and everybody always talks about William Hartnell's historic stories as well, mostly missing Marco Polo and so forth. But me, if there was ever one wish I could have for Doctor Who, it would be to have every Patrick Troughton story back. I'm a very long player in Doctor Who. Watched it all the way from when John Pertwee changed into Tom Baker. Watched it all the way through my childhood. When it was cancelled, I was one of the people that sought audio recordings to listen to stories that you could no longer watch. With the advent of tape, I collected them. With the advent of DVD, I did not buy at that time, but I did when Blu-ray came along. So all I can say to you is I'm a huge Doctor Who fan. Loads of books, everything on it. I've got the audio dramas as well. And it's just one of those things that follows me through my life. So I'm glad it's still around. Thank you so much for that, Ian. And lastly, but not least, is Martroid. I had a couple of Freddos the other day, you said. Childhood favourite of mine too, Del. And I've just remembered, actually, that Steve comment disappeared, and he sent me a photograph of the comment so that if it did disappear, I could still read it out. So if you just bear with me a moment, because I forgot all about that. I'm going to bring up my Discord, which is on one of my phones. Shouldn't take too long. It's just I'm still using all three phones at the moment, and I'm slowly getting them copied across. Bear with me. Got it. Right. All right, let's get to Discord. There it is. Let's go to personal messages. Right. Always a little bit tricky, this. There's chats. Here we go. Sorry about the wait. So, I've got to read this, and it's very small. Hi, Dal. Sorry I left it late to comment. It's been a weird week, and I'm stressed to hell. Anyway, great blog as usual. Thanks for answering my question. By the way, I found it hilarious when you said you'd slept in a hedge. Aha, that's priceless. A good job. I didn't rant. Good job it didn't rain. Sorry. Now, two questions for you. One, 1970s TV program Get Some In. I've recently rewatched this and quite enjoyed it. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts? Yes, Get Some In. An ITV very early 1970s army program, which I saw on That's TV about 3 years ago. They repeated them on a Sunday morning. It has an army tune at the beginning, you know, where they say "Get some in." I remember all of that. It really wasn't Sergeant Bilko, and it didn't try to be. Very, very British. Always the authoritative figure that you're trying to get one over on. Then there's the head of the band, you know, of the sort of like the dorm that tries to antagonize the sergeant. Brilliant. And then of course you've got the weakest member who rattles on or comes out with some stupid daft comment. It's a very formulaic TV show, but it was great. I think it lasted 2 seasons, possibly 3. I don't remember it back in the day. I do remember bits of it in the late 70s when it was repeated, but I didn't know about it really fully or get to see it all the way through until it was repeated on That's TV. And from that point of view, I got great enjoyment out of it. Would I rewatch it again? Probably in a couple of years. It's not one like Faulty Towers. It's not one that I'd go back to very quickly, if you see what I mean. So I hope that answers that question. Question 2, Vortex Software. Have you played any of their games? And if so, which did you enjoy? Thanks, take care, mate. Vortex. Yeah, that's Tornado Low Level, isn't it? I didn't have a Spectrum that much. And I was always impressed with Tornado Level. I think they did Highway Encounter as well and a few others. They were always on the high end of graphics, but Tornado Low Level was the only one that really I thought had a great game in it. Flying around the islands in a jet or a helicopter, I think later on, picking up people and taking them away to another island while a war is sort of like going on. Great. You had height and pitch and everything there. Craft coming in, ground defenses trying to shoot you out of the sky. Even the wind came into effect. But they weren't one that was so prolific that they had a huge stable of games for you to play. What was there was quality, if I remember rightly, a bit like Houston. Very few, but great, if you see what I mean. But they worked so well on the Spectrum, but didn't work so well on the Commodore 64. I think they never really found their element on the Commodore 64. Different type of engine, different type of beast. You needed speed of processor to make their games work, and the 64 was lacking in that. And no amount of sprites was going to change that. So yeah, interesting question, a great one. Thank you so much, and you end my question side of my blog. So thank you so much for that. We're gonna just do a slight jump cut because I just need to take a little bit of a break. My throat is getting a bit raspy, and of course my tablets I'm still taking at the moment, so they do dry me out quite a lot. So just bear with me. So I'm back. Hopefully this blog's going quite well. Again, it's a bit experimental because I'm using a new camera. So if there is some stutter, I'm not seeing the lip sync go out, which is brilliant. It's fixed that. But if there's stutter, it's because I'm probably using the wrong codec, and you're going to have to give me a bit of time. I forgot all about OBS and how much work I'd have to do before this blog. So I've probably using the wrong codec, which might cause there's some frame jumps. So the other thing is that I'm doing it at 60 frames per second as well. I might need to drop that. It might be just too much. But anyway, we get to the watched on YouTube, and remember, I've been ill. So I'll read out bits. Please don't feel offended if I haven't watched your channel this week. I've been sick. If you've ever been sick, you'll know it's not nice. And with me dropping off to sleep and so forth, it's been a pretty bad time for me. But anyway, with that out the way, I did watch my two mainstays, which is This Week in Retro and Techmoan. This Week in Retro talked about something which I was well aware of, the retro game price crash. That's where cartridges have been priced at $2 million and so forth. Of course, it was going to crash. That's not really a news story to me. It's just an official approximation that it has. Then they talked about Dungeon Keeper, an open source version of Dungeon Keeper has reached V1. That was interesting news for me because I've been talking about Dungeon Keeper the last couple of weeks. I will be looking at that. I didn't agree with their analogy all the way through. I didn't really have too much stability issues that I remember, or I was having so much enjoyment out of it, I didn't care. One of the two. But it got more stable as it went along. Dungeon Keeper 2, even less stability issues from memory. So that's definitely worth that one. And then they did a retro emulation inside VR, and they gave an example of the BBC Micro as an example. And I just talked about that in regards to my own headset. So definitely that's something that can be added to. VR is not for everybody. I do understand that. I've still got a PS VR headset down there. Hardly ever use it, but my Oculus I use once, twice a week, and it's a mainstay point for me for watching films. I'd love to be able to watch films like a watch along using VR. But again, like I say, YouTube and everything doesn't copyrights and all that sort of stuff. You don't get that with a watch along on a VR headset. But then again, you don't get the audience. So, I will look into that a bit more. But what I was trying to get at when it comes to watching films in VR, my 4K TV doesn't have 3D. So I can watch all my old 3D films in VR, and they're great because the resolution is just so high, and the screen is not dark like it was with wearing those sunglasses active lenses. So basically the brightness is back up and the 3D is there. Absolutely marvelous. So that's the reason why I bought the new Meta headset, was because of the resolution jump, the hertz jump, and therefore the quality of the video is that much better, and now it's a major stay point if I want to watch a film. Techmoan looked at, for the first time in a long time, should I say, a Bang & Olufsen hi-fi, which was called the B-Sound 3200. Bang & Olufsen was so expensive, they're like Sonos. I've got a Bang & Olufsen tablet, by the way, which was in collaboration with Dell. And I'd have loved to have had one back in the day, but after watching Techmoan and looking at the device that he was looking at that came out, I think, in 2001, they had their problems. And they're so expensive. And looking at them now, you wouldn't buy one. They are bits of furniture. I was like him, like Techmoan. a major fan of having a device that had all the bells, whistles, and noises, and needles and lights flashing at you. In fact, I missed that on my amp. It just now tells me I'm playing it in Dolby Atmos. It doesn't really have balance and bars and graphic equalizers bouncing about. And I miss all of that. But then I'm an old fuddy-duddy. I used to love that. I used to love going into a Woolworths and turning the hi-fis on and looking at them. Much to the annoyance of the staff at the time. Turn that off! You know, who turned that on? All that sort of stuff. I was in there turning them on. That's a nice thing to remember. We moved to LGR, and LGR was here for the second week because he did a 30-year retrospective of SimCity. And SimCity 2000 was a major stay point game for me. All the way up until SimCity 3000 came out. I played that quite a lot. And I tried to play SimCity online, but it was so buggy that by the time they got it to a stable level, I never played it anymore. And since then, it's been City Skylines. So I do like going back to SimCity 2000. It was a major change for that particular game, going from 2D to isometric. But it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I'm itching to go back now, to be quite honest. We move on to mid-level media, who I don't really mention too much, but I mention him because the announcements this week have all been about True Lies, Abyss, and Aliens being released in 4K early next year. And we've been waiting for these for a long time because they missed a Blu-ray announcement. So there was no Blu-ray of these films. The only way to watch these now is through streaming, or going back to your Laserdiscs and DVDs, which is not the nice way to watch it these days when you've got OLED. You can upscale them. They do look okay, but they're nothing like 4K. So we're all looking forward to that. And so, of course, his is the one I've pointed out as an announcement for those films, but there were many more this week. And then Movie Collector interested me this week because he did American Graffiti. And as I mentioned before, grain and the quality of transfer have been talked about so much this week. So basically, I've watched my own version of American Graffiti, got my own opinion of it, and mine matches perfectly with Movie Collector, who used to be a projectionist. It's stupid to think that they used DNR to remove all the grain and then add another layer of grain to give it as close as possible what it was. It's all to do with film stock. It's all to do with the transfer process in itself. The colours are now vibrant. That can be a knock for people that have watched the old American Graffiti because the colours were muted. And it is a 60s, based around a 60s one-night event. So, yeah, I get it. It's a difficult one to review. To me, it's as good a quality as you're ever going to get for that film on the stock that they used for it. Then we go to my friends in the film side of things that I watch. Again, haven't watched too many. I did watch Rock God, who is a very close. He's the closest friend I've got in the film side of things. He's the amount of work he's done this week. It's just astronomical. I thought he did a lot last week. This week, it's like every day. My God, I couldn't keep up. And for me, I had to watch everything on the Friday. So there was a good 2.5 to 3 hours of catch up for me to do on Friday. And then you got to remember that there are all my other friends as well for me to watch. So you can imagine Rock God was the first one that I watched, and it took up a lot of time. But he did he had a busy day last week because he went and saw the 40th anniversary of Our Vida Saint Pet's first episode being broadcast again. That was brilliant. but he also went to a Video Nasty's presentation, I think, that day. So he went to Newcastle twice, and he's not a healthy person. He's battling some illnesses along with his wife, who's obviously just had a kidney transplant. So you can imagine him standing around is very difficult for him. And I just think, wow, you're fighting the pain, but also having to smile and have your lovely laughing persona in the broadcast itself. More on that if I ever get to interview him. Watch this space. Then we get to Scott the movie critic. I was actually on that on Friday, so anybody that wants to watch some stuff that I'm on, I was actually one of the panelists on that. So We Bob Art, there's one. Look for Scott the movie critic. Look for a chat in his video lists or live lists, and look for the last one that was there. I'm in that. Had a great time, absolutely wonderful. That was brilliant. Then we've got Did You See That, who I've explained has sort of like moved away a little bit from chat, although he did do one this week. He did a Hunger Games review. So the Hunger Games has got a new film, and he did a review of that. He did a 2,000 sub special, so he's reached a milestone of 2,000 subs. Absolutely spot on. And he did a horror vlog, so he went to a horror convention and did a vlog. So again, a lot for you to watch there. Then of course I watched the movie chats for Scott. I did watch a bit of Pete's, but I'm not fully caught up yet. But do go and watch Pete. His channel's Playtendo Guy. He has a very vibrant movie chat on a Wednesday. And then of course the only other one that's really there that I haven't really got to watch an awful lot of this week was Jake. His is Jake Talks Movies. I believe he did a video this week. And his is a newer of the channels. And he has an interesting take on things. Being a younger or a youth doing these things, ideas can come in and they're instantly portrayed in the videos they do. Personally, with experience, it's sometimes best to write this down on paper and then flesh it out. But the spontaneousness of Jake is all I can say about him. It's amazing how much knowledge that he's gaining watching films, and how that does a U-turn on his interpretation of a film that he saw earlier and didn't like. Because as you keep going through and watching films and watching older films and then going back to newer films, you interpret it in a different way. That's the sort of thing that I look for when I'm watching a channel. Like I say, I've tried to contact him this week, but it's been a bit difficult. But there was something I wanted to ask him in regards to streaming games, and I also wanted to ask him a bit about Doctor Who. Watch this space. Might happen, might not. All depends. The other nice thing in regards to all of that is that they want to go their own way. They want to move forward with their own vision. You know, me, I'll change my vision based on somebody else's idea, because it might be something I've not thought of, but that's experience, isn't it? Right. So then we get to your YouTube, the stuff that I watch on a regular basis that are subscribers to me, part of my family, people that I'm really close to. So we get Down the Rabbit Hole. He did a interesting one on film, actually. It was about Star Wars in 4K. I got the wrong end of the stick on this because I've got Star Wars in 4K, but it's the special edition. I didn't know he was talking about the older non-special effects one, which is the only way you can really watch it in 4K is through Disney Plus. he's got an interesting retrospect on it saying, is media now the narrative? Now, if you don't understand what that means, go and watch the video. It's hard to explain, but you'll get it once he starts talking. And then he did what's in the Xbox, because he bought a long time ago an Xbox second hand and put in a load of games and started going through the catalogue. He hasn't done that for a while, and he's gone back because he wanted to look at Knights of the Old Republic. In other words, he's going back into his Star Wars roots again, because Star Wars was his first video this week. So definitely worth a watch. Definitely watch Keith on Down the Rabbit Hole. He is a mainstay for me to watch each week. Brilliant. And then you got Gaming Since the 70s with Steve, and we do my salute to Steve. Steve, you git. You are good, you know that. I want your subscriber base to get back up to the numbers they were before and overtake me, you miserable bastard. But anyway, he did a little game that I'd never seen before called Alfredo's Parking, which was on the Commodore 64. And I like that game a hell of a lot. There's no deaths in it. It was just watching him frustration and working out the puzzle element of it. I loved it. In fact, I'm going to make a point of finding that game and loading it up. I'd never seen it before. Brilliant. He played some Atari games, which is great. It's always nice to go and look at something that's a system that you didn't really go on too much. So he played a number of them, Atari games from different eras. That was great. And then he did his top 6 and worst 5 games from Acorn Soft? Yeah. Now, Acorn Soft is not something that I'm that familiar with, because I only had a BBC computer for a short period of time. And he wasn't going to show Elite, which is why it's top 6 and worst 5. I think that's the right way around. So it was interesting watching what the other ones were, and how instantly I thought, wow, I didn't know the BBC B could do that. It's not a gaming computer. It was, the BBC B's history really is more towards education. So it's more about the programming language, what you can do with drawing lines on the screen. We never had a draw command on the Commodore 64. It's all peeks, pokes and stuff, and maths. So that was great. And thank you very much, Steve, for your contribution this week. It really was good. And we moved to Robert's Retro Gaming, and you know how much I have a full appreciation for Robert. Every day there's something from Robert. That's the thing. So you're never going to get bored, and you're always going to find something. Now, obviously, he continues along his normal route, which is Minecraft playing. It's Atari 8-bit games. He's played some games that used to be on the 64, so it was interesting to watch the Atari interpretation of it. And then he's playing a game that's out of his Steam library. Now, I do that a lot. Playing games out of my Steam library is something I do an awful lot. So it's nothing new. But he's playing one particular game, which I played for quite a bit. It's called Euphoria. Strategy sort of game with growing trees on planets. I'm not going to be able to explain it very well. Best thing for you to do on that is he's played a couple of games over 3 videos so far. Each, I think, are being around about an hour each. So you got plenty to watch. Seb's Place was interesting as well this week, because he did these 8-bit battles. Do you remember I talked about those in the early days where he did Bruce Lee and that? This time he hit Hunchback, but he did it with his new knowledge of Commodore 64, being as he's got his own version, his own computer of that now. And his scoring system hasn't quite matured yet. But he got the right order. Well, he got the order that I would have put it in about which was the best Hunchback, the 64 version, the Spectrum version, or the Amstrad version. I would look at the scoring system again if I was to be Seb myself. I don't think it works very well. He got a score, if you were doing it out of 10, he got a score of 5. I give Hunchback a 6. So it's not that far when you consider, when you're rounding things up, you know, because he might have got a 5.5 or something like that, which means he's not far off. It's just that I think that the scoring system for playability and how he does it doesn't work very well. Can't put my finger on it. I'll probably come back to him, but that does not take away how wonderful that video was. I watched it twice. Take it like that. 20th Century Gaming, he did a long play on Batman, the movie on the Commodore 64. A great game, one that's come up just recently because of the live stream with Mainmeister, although we played the Amiga version. I only watched the first level because I might want to go back to that, but that's a problem with me rather than with 20th Century Gaming, because I don't watch too many long plays because they're going to show me everything there is about the game and then I don't want to play it. So I tend to shy away from them. And then, of course, we've got my friend Mainmeister himself. We're getting to the end now. And basically, he did a Burger Time review, which was the arcade version Burger Time on the Commodore 64, written by Arlasoft, who did it for just before the charity stream a couple of weeks ago. He wrote it in 2 weeks, and it's incredibly impressive stuff. It's available now. You can download it for free. We do encourage you to buy it. If you do buy it, you know, every couple of quid helps. It can be 50 pence if you want, but the money goes to the charity that Mame did for his charity stream. So that was great. And he also did a nice and nasty podcast with Kev from Down the Rabbit Hole, who I've already told you, one of my favourite YouTube streamers. And that is the end of the blog. Wow, not too bad. So we get to the media stuff now and what I've bought. So I'm just going to explain something about whether there's any stuttering in that going on. It's only because I've set up OBS and not streamlined it. Black Friday has just come and gone while it's still going. This dropped in price from £200 to $69.99. My old webcam, which I've still got, was a £120 webcam at the time and is a bit old, and OBS doesn't use Logitech cameras very well, so I bought the Razer Kaio Pro. There it is, and as you can see, it's a much wider lens, much bigger lens on that. It's supposed to be good for low light. I haven't set it up correctly. For the first thing I've just done right now, I've noticed I've got autofocus on. I've got to turn that off. I don't do anything with autofocus anymore. If I'm not putting something up to the screen, I'm in a fixed position. So there's one thing that I need to look at. It does have HDR. It does have 4K. It does have 1080p at 60 frames per second. All sorts of low light sensor stuff that gave it that whopping great £200 price tag. This was a couple of years ago, but even so, at I think it was £69.99 I bought it for, 70 quid. That's £130 knocked off, whichever way you looked at it. And my webcam was the next thing that I needed to go after I recently bought my microphone. So I'm starting to become a little bit more tech savvy with how I'm doing things. But again, this blog might be a disaster just purely because I had to set it OBS very, very quickly. And then we get to the stuff that I've bought this week. Oh, and there's been a bit because there was a sale by, I think it's Intrada, is it? Is that what they call themselves? Indicator. Where films ended up being like 3 for 15 quid, so a £5 each. So I filled in a few gaps. Now I usually buy just steelbooks, so you have to understand I don't buy things that are just plastic covers. But I did this time because there was a couple of films I really wanted to rewatch. So I'm going to go back to my other camera now, the Galaxy Note 10. There we are. Look, you can see in its lovely widescreen look, and we'll put these up. So there's Star Trek Picard Season 3 in Steelbook. Again, Blu-ray edition. There's no 4K, even though it was filmed with 4K cameras, But that season finished off Picard and finished off, as far as they're concerned, the Next Generation stuff. They think at the moment, but at least Picard is finished, which means I've got all 3 in a steelbook format on Blu-ray. They'll probably change all that again when they get to release all their stuff in 4K. At the moment, only the films are in 4K. So then we've got another favourite film of mine, Jewel, which I've now watched. Jewel, brilliant. It's an old 1971 Steven Spielberg film. Some people think of it as being his first motion picture. Just to go over that, he did do a film in 1964, which he was writer and producer on, a science fiction film, which didn't do terrifically well. He also, in the same year, did Columbo, which at the time was a TV show, but it was what they call Movie of the Week. So some people get confused. Is Jewel the first movie he ever filmed? It's still not his first film when you consider that earlier 1960s film that I talked about. But I consider it to be his first glossy film that he made, with where the main stay point generally is Jaws. Right? Jewel is fantastic. It's a man against a truck. All it is a bloke trying to get to a destination, hounded by a truck who's trying to kill him. Brilliant. It's got a lovely lenticular front as well. I don't know if you can see the mirror there, look, but the truck gets closer and closer. But of course, with my light bounce on the TV, it's not coming up very well. But the truck gets closer and closer in the wing mirror. The next one is a film that came out this year, Gran Turismo, for which it came on 2 formats of Steelbook. I only bought the blue one. I don't need 2, for God's sake. It's based on a true story of a group of lads that were taken onto the real track by their game playing of the game Gran Turismo. True story. Not too bad a film. Got enjoyment out of it. It's better than the Fast and Furious films. Not as good as, you know, the semi-biographical films like when they showed James Hunt's Formula One win in the 70s. That was brilliant. So it's just a nice popcorny film. These are the films that I got very cheap through Indicator that came to be a £5 each. There's Missing, which I watched last week. Then you've got Young Winston, which is about Winston Churchill, which is directed by Richard Attenborough. Sorry, I had to think then for a moment. Very good, pre-Gandhi, bit slow paced, but I like it because it's a bit about war and the history of Churchill. And Churchill didn't live too far away from here, Blenheim Palace, you see. So then we've got The Three Worlds of Gulliver, continuing my Ray Harryhausen collection. Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, which I showed you last week, all in that Dynamation, which is lovely. I love Ray Harryhausen. And you got The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, again, Ray Harryhausen. All these are Blu-rays. And then you got The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, which fills in a lot of gaps in regards to my Ray Harryhausen collection. And that's about it. Yeah, so let's go back to camera, because you know what that means. We're going to start doing the media stuff. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to let you see some of the trailers of the stuff that I've watched this week, and we'll just wrap up at the end. So I'm going to turn the mic off now, put you into the other mode, and hopefully you'll like this.
Ellen Carlson finally met the perfect man.
Marry me.
Are you serious?
Church, bridesmaids, the works.
He's everything a father could hope for.
I wouldn't want you to think I intend on spending the rest of my life doing what I'm doing now. Ultimately, my ambition lies elsewhere.
everything she'd ever dreamed of.
We're young, we're rich, we love each other.
There's only one thing wrong.
Who is it?
Bellman.
Jay is different from anyone I've known. He's got this strength.
Hey, come on! You need some help there? What you got in there, dead body?
I'm investigating the disappearance of Patricia Farron. Your wife's name was in the diary.
What are you doing?
Watching you. You look so peaceful, I don't want to take advantage of you.
Come on. Take advantage of me.
You're such a kind and loving and gentle boy.
I'm ambitious. I'm determined. And I'm not afraid of hard work.
Matt Dillon.
Hi.
Sean Young.
God, you scared me.
A kiss. Before dying.
Get back in the bus, please. Please, come on. Come on, back in the bus.
Whatever you've done, I know there is good inside you. Who am I? You are a gift. I know it's been difficult for you lately that you feel different from other kids. You are different. After your dad and I got married, we prayed for a baby for so long. One night, someone listened. Brandon? You are special. We believe that you came here for a reason. He was in the barn.
Did he find it?
No. It was like he was drawn to it.
He may look like us. He's not like us.
gonna do? What are we gonna do?
Oh, shut up! I'm not missing my race.
Oh, I'm gonna puke.
Don't pick up my dad's car.
Yes, we're not going to jail!
Oh, crap.
Listen, son. You think you're gonna play a stupid video game about cars and you're gonna become a race car driver?
All I ever wanted to do is be a racer. I'm doing it.
The 10 of you are the best Gran Turismo players in the world. Now is your chance to race real cars.
This is insane.
It's not gonna work. The guys who race are elite athletes. Your kids are scrawny little gamer kids.
That's where you come in.
You think you can do the impossible. I'm here to prove that you can't.
You get tired, you get sloppy, you get hurt, and you lose races!
You puked on my lawn.
I know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid. I've raced this track 1,000 times in the game. Let me drive it my way.
That was actually pretty great.
We have a newcomer this year. His presence is shaking the foundation of the sport.
Since the major leagues. The other drivers, your pit crew are going to hate you.
Much easier with a joystick, isn't it?
I can't see anything!
Not sure if I can do this.
Most people can't. I got a feeling you're not most people.
If I lose more than just a race. So I'm not gonna quit.
You've got to prove to everyone that you belong.
You've raced it, what, like 1,000 times? Now you just gotta do it in real life.
Gran Turismo, based on a true story.
But I won't stop now.
And there we go. So like I said, apologies if the camera is stuttering and so forth. The lip sync seems fine. I'll work on that because overall I'm quite enjoying the picture quality that I'm seeing on the preview display. Kiss Before Dying happened because I was talking to Rock God about Fatal Attraction, which I bought a couple of weeks ago, and I was going through my book of films similar to others, and A Kiss Before Dying came up, and it reminded me of a chat that I had with another friend called Ryan, who likes film noir, and Robert Wagner did A Kiss Before Dying in the 50s. So I watched it. It's not a bad watch. It's an average type film, but it's still got those jump thriller moments. So it's definitely worth a look. Duel is just splendor. It's just basically luxury on a stick. Absolutely brilliant. Brightburn intrigued me. I've had it for a while on Steelbook. But it's sort of like, what if Superman or the story of Superman happened, but the kid turned out to be evil? That intrigued me. And I got great enjoyment out of that film. What a great film. Now, I didn't put the trailer on for Star Trek Picard just in case I got a copyright on it. But I think I've done a blog before where I showed the trailer for Picard when I was watching it when it was on Paramount Plus. So I thought, wow, you can watch that when you go back. Other than that, that ends the blog. A very interesting week. One I don't want to repeat. My mother's on the mend. She went back to her bed last night. Otherwise, she was sleeping down here after a hospital visit. Tablets, she comes off of those in a week's time. And I'm hoping to go back to normality. And what I mean by normality is all those things that I was talking about before where I said I'm working on some projects. I've got a pad full of ideas and stuff, and they're filling up again. So it's the fleshing out, the part where you write down your questions, you write down your vision, you write down who you're going to invite, you write down how it's going to be streamed, are all Now, I'd say halfway to 3/4. With one, I'm hoping that I might be able to record this week as a dummy. So if I can get the camera sorted out, if I can get some relaxed time to get my energy levels back up, big changes. And I'm hoping, like I say, looking forward to getting caught up with people I haven't spoken to over the last week, because it has been a bit of a lonely sort of like time. And a big shout out to Rock God, who sort of like chatted to me yesterday. We talked about nostalgia, we talked about how streams work, we talked about ideas, we talked about his week, we talked about my week. All of that puts you on an even keel. I salute to you, sir. And with that, thanks to everybody. You make my week, as does this video. And with that, salute. Hope to see you next week. Bye-bye.